هم قوم يتحابون بروح الله من غير أرحام بينهم ولا أموال يتعاطونها فوالله إن وجوههم لنور وإنهم على نور لا يخافون إذا خاف الناس ولا يحزنون إذا حزن الناس ثم تلا هذه الآية ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. But dear brothers and elders and fellow youngsters and sisters in Islam, first of all, I have two complaints. First, you call me here, Sheikh Shanawi, and you give me 20 minutes. It takes me 20 minutes to tie my turban. So it's not fair. You should give me more than 20 minutes. And second, they told me I'm only here for one talk, and then they have a second talk after Isha Salah. So those are my two complaints that I have, and I forgive you, Sheikh. And my other, if I knew Sheikh Siraj al-Hajj was coming, I would probably not come. So I've never spoken in front of him. He's our mentor, our leader. So I'm speaking at Amru Fawq al-Adab. Please correct me if I say anything wrong. Brothers and sisters in Islam, as you've seen on the board, I understood the power of community from two things. One, something that happened in my life, and the other, which we see through the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Last year, same day, the 5th of October, so when I was looking at it, I thought about it. My brother, we have 5 brothers. My father is a physician, my mother is a physician. They moved here from Pakistan, I think in the 80s, and they finished their med school at Michigan State University. And they dedicated their 5 kids, boys that we had, all to become Hafiz and Alim. And one of them now is also becoming a doctor. So he's almost done. But nonetheless, they understood. My father made a concerted effort to make us, put us on this path of deen and make us leaders of the future, and hopefully we can become that. My youngest brother, he just got done this journey. He just finished his Hifz program, his high school, and he finished his Alim program, and he just returned to Michigan last year before Ramadan. And so he was starting his new career, new path in life. He was only 22 years old. And October 5th, he taught Quran in our school. And he taught ilm program in our school. And he was on his way to take medication from my mother. So he picked up some medication from the pharmacy. And it was during his lunch break to drop it off to her. And so he could come back and teach Quran. So he had a 1-hour lunch break. And he knew my mother needed her prescription. So he went and picked it up. And right when he got out of the pharmacy, there was a lady who was driving about 75 miles an hour on a 25-mile zone and hit him head-on collision, and he passed away on site. Rahmatullah alayh. It was extremely difficult, extremely difficult. I was myself paralyzed mentally, emotionally, physically for months after that. But I will tell you this. My mother, who's an old woman now, and my father, who's old as well, there's no shoulders that can carry, strong enough that can carry their own son to the grave. And in the same lady who has to bear the child also has to see a dead child is very difficult. But at that moment, we understood how important the community was. If it wasn't for the community, none of us would eat because we had no appetite. None of us would, my mom couldn't cook food. For 2.5 months after my brother passed away, إِصْنَعُوا لِآلِ جَعْفَرَ طَعَامًا فَإِنَّهُمْ أَتَاهُمْ أَمْرٌ يُشْغِلُهُمْ. This hadith I understood at that moment. The Prophet, when he found out Ja'far ibn Abi Talib anhu passed away, Shaheed, he came to their house to meet the children, left the house, and he said, make food for the family. They're going through difficulty right now, emotionally, they can't do anything. So this I never understood what it meant till here. Our community shared a Google sheet and they put down the dates and they said the names, and people, hundreds of people come to my mother's house. Every single day for lunch and dinner for about 2.5 months, the community brought food for us. No, I still don't know who brought the food for us. We had thousands of people that came and we could rest on their shoulders who gave us strength. If it wasn't for that community, we would never get strength again. We had people, mothers and sisters in the community who gave so much support to our mother. My mother's own sons, us, we could not have given her that support that other women in the community gave. So when I saw this, I understood that actually the true investment of ours should be in investing in a good community. Because إن أخاك الحق من كان معك لا يضر الناس لينفعك. Ali ibn Abi Talib says, a true friend is the one who puts himself through difficulty when you go through difficulty to benefit you. ومن ريب الناس صدعك شتت شمله ليجمعك. He's the one when time and different things in life, when they break you apart, he breaks himself apart to fix you. He does anything, وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. He does anything or she does anything to help you. So this incident that took place with my brother Sheikh Abdul Rahim, we make dua from Allah makes him among the people of Jannatul Firdaus. It was very difficult for our family, for our brothers, but we understood how powerful the community was, and because of the community, we kept on moving forward. And the second thing that I see from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, how difficult when we go to Mecca and Medina, it's so difficult to leave Mecca and Medina, right? So difficult. You see Masjid Nabawi, leaving Medina is so difficult. Going to Mecca to Mukarramah, leaving it so difficult. Nobody in this world, in this room, could love Mecca and the Kaaba as the Prophet ﷺ loved it. Even the cave that he chose to rest in and take comfort in was a cave around the city where he could still see the Kaaba, because he loved it so much. But even then, a point came in the 13 years of Mecca where they understood, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, now it's time for you to develop a community. You have to go Medina Munawwara, go there. He did not move to Medina because there was better water there, because Zamzam was there. He did not move because there was more, no, he moved there for the وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانِ Imam Razi says, these were people, they moved to the city, al-Iman, makan al-Iman. They moved to a place where they could fortify and keep their Iman protected. That's why they moved there. And in the city, Sheikh Shnawi said, talk about the community. In the city, this whole verse, I can only speak about one thing in 20 minutes. The first thing that these people had, because of which Allah chose this city, يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. They loved those who moved there. They loved each other. This love, brothers and sisters, is not manifested when we meet each other when we can. Sheikh, I'm in your area, so I decided to come see you. Love is manifested when you go out of your way to meet each other. When you put yourself through inconvenience to meet each other. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, verily on the Day of Judgment, there are certain individuals who the shuhada, the prophets, will envy them. And they're not prophets nor the martyrs. The Sahaba say, Ya Rasulullah, who are these people? The Prophet ﷺ said, these are people who love each other for the sake of Islam. They just love each other. And they have no relationship among each other. They have no exchange of money. These people have such noor on their faces, and they're always surrounded with noor. They don't get scared when people get scared. They don't get worried and grieved when people get grieved. Then he recited the ayah, these are the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are not living in fear or no grief in this world. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ya Aba Dhar, ayyul imani awthaq. What is the strongest branch of iman? And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, al-muwalatu fillah wal-hubbu fillah wal-bughdu fillah. Friendship for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Loving each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the most important branch of Islam. And love, Iqbal, alhamdulillah, he says, I'm sure most of you know Iqbal over here. I'm going to say this poem and then I'll translate a few words and I'll sit down. This love, it doesn't come, when he was in India, this is before the separation, he understood the world. He understood that the Muslims were living in a time where everyone was trying to just guard themselves, protect themselves. And nobody was thinking about everybody. Look, it's just every man for themselves. Let's figure it out. If we can protect our iman and get to Jannah is good enough. But that doesn't work. You cannot do that. You have to get away from selfishness to selflessness. We have a school in Michigan. It's a boarding school. And there was we have a higher rate of denying students than accepting students because of criteria in our Islamic school, boarding school for Hafiz and Alim. There was one student who applied from Houston. We refused him. His mother then called again. We refused him again. Then his mother then, they emotionally blackmail you. I'm like this, I'm like that. Mothers, they put you through all this, difficult. I said, Auntie, I can't do anything, I'm sorry. But the person who can do something is my older brother, Sheikh Abdullah, who's coming to Houston this weekend for a program in Masjid Maryam. Why don't you go see him there? So then she goes to the masjid with her son and she meets Sheikh Abdullah. Sheikh Abdullah sees him. We get out of the masjid. I say, Bajan, what do you think? He says, no, we can't accept him. All right, cool. Then we get to a dinner at someone's house where they had all the current students' parents there. So there was probably 9 students from Houston. You know, Sheikh Sahsawi is there, his son's there now too. At that time, there was 9. And all the parents were sitting there, and the entire dinner, the agenda behind this dinner was that these parents found out that this kid has applied and we are thinking about accepting him. So their agenda was to convince us not to accept him. That's it. They said, don't accept him. You know, he's not a good kid. He's like this, he's like that. So it's better you don't accept him. So Sheikh Abdullah and me were sitting there, just listening. When we got out, my brother has this street swag. He looked at me and said, yo, you think what I'm thinking? I said, what are you thinking? He said, you think what I'm thinking? I said, what are you thinking? He said, no, tell me what you're thinking. And I said, Bajan, I'm thinking about accepting this kid. He said, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Let's show these people they don't have the right to do that. They don't have the right to just think about their own kid. Other people's kids are also our children. They also belong part of our community. And the more they get strong, the more our children will get strong. And the more effort we make, my dad's elder, his name was Sheikh Abdul Wahab, my father was very concerned about us growing up. And he said to him, worry about the community. Worry about everyone's kids just as much as you worry about your own kids. Allah is ghayur. If you make dua for other people's children, Allah will take care of your children. He'll take care of them. Don't worry about it. So Iqbal, he says, Tu raze kun faka hai. Apni aankhon par ayan ho ja. Khudi ka razada ho ja. Khuda ka tarjuma ho ja. Hawas ne kar diya hai tukre tukre no insan ko. Ukhuwat ka bayan ho ja. Muhabbat ki zuban ho ja. Ye Hindi, wo Khurasani, ye Turani, ye Afghani. He says, first he says, you are the manifestation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying kun fayakun. Understand your value. You are ashraf al-makhluqat. Don't forget who you are. You are the best of creation. Then he says, Havasne kar diya hai, the idea, وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ. This greed, this selfishness has made us forget about each other. He says, become brothers again and become the one who expresses love with every action. He says, this idea that I'm from this country, I'm from that country, he gives a metaphor of a bird. Ghubar alud rang wa nasab hai baal wa par tere. Tu e murghe haram urne se pehle par fishan ho ja. He says, this bird, he said, you all individually are like this bird who has different specks and dirt on its wings. And the specks and dirt on the wings that he says that we have is the fact that we are more worried, our value system, we're more worried about building our own home first before the masjid, even though that was not the value system of the Prophet ﷺ. Is that correct? When he came to Medina, people built the masjid first, the community first, and then they built their own homes. Our value systems are all over the place. When it comes to, we all have different things we value. The Sahaba, initially, the Prophet taught them, what is the value system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I'll quickly mention one thing. Uthman ibn Affan comes to Mecca, in front of the Kaaba. He sees a poet by the name of Labid, who is saying, Ala kullu shay' ma khala Allahu batil. Everything other than Allah is null and void. So he says, Sadaq, you spoke the truth. Then he says, Wa kullu na'imin la mahalata za'il. And every happiness and joy one day will come to an end. He says, Kadhabt, you're lying. Inna na'im al-jannati la yazul. Verily the happiness and the joy of Jannah never ends. So people jumped him. They jumped him and they kept him beating him until he lost eyesight from one eye. So his uncle says to him, who was Waheed ibn Mughira, he says to him, Yabna am, inna aynaka la ghaniyatun amma asabaha. That your eye was much more valuable than what you made it go through. It wasn't worth it. What you just did wasn't worth it. Uthman ibn Affan who says, Ya ammi, inna ayni sahiha la faqiratun ila mithli ma asaba ukhtaha fi sabilillah. He says, my eye that can see is envious of the eye that was given for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It wishes it was that eye. It wishes. The idea that what I have given for Allah is more valuable than what I have kept for myself. Sa'd bin Mu'adh on the battle of Badr, when the Prophet looked at him and said, what do you think about going forward? He said, Sil habla man shit, waqta habla man shit. وَخُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِنَا مَا شِئْتَ وَاتْرُكْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِنَا مَا شِئْتَ وَمَا أَخَذْتَ مِنَّا أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا تَرَكْتَ. He said, O Prophet ﷺ, make us, whatever you want us to do, you can do with us. Take whatever wealth you want from us. Leave whatever you want. And this was the psychology of every single Sahabi. O Prophet of Allah, the wealth that you have taken from us is going to be more beloved than the wealth we have left behind with us. The one that you have given for Allah. So this was the idea. This Iqbal is saying that we are all, our wings are filled with this speck of, I have to first figure myself out. How can I just graduated, the masjid over here, we're going to do a small fundraiser. I think, inshallah, Sheikh, this is my dua. 15, 20 years from now, masjids should never do fundraisers or appeal. Okay, we should never do appeals. We should all know and understand how important this is for our children. We should all understand that, this is the place where if we don't have this, our children will no longer be Muslims in a few generations. This is the most, if we look at the masraf, if this is a whole different ilm of sharia, the masarif of the people's money, where they spent first, they always spent for Allah first. Whatever was left behind, they spent for other things. So Iqbal is saying, if we understand what is truly valuable, and we shake our wings off, and then you see the bird, once it shakes the debris, the speck off its wings, then it can fly. So all of us individually, if we can shake off the rust that we have of individualism, and 5 minutes more, he's saying, if we can go out of our way. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ya Aba Razin, ألا أدلك على ملاك هذا الأمر كله تصيب به خير الدنيا والآخرة? Should I not tell you the essence of all this deen, because of which you will get the best of both worlds? All right, what is it? عليك بمجالس أهل الذكر. First, confine yourself to good environments. This is the first thing. None of us, I went to Mexico, it was not a good idea. I don't know why it's repeating. I went there with my wife after Eid. I had 5 days. And when I went there, I never heard adhan for 5 days. I never seen a single Muslim in 5 days, except for in the beach. While I was swimming, this one person comes up to me and says, Salaam alaikum. I don't know how you recognize I was a Muslim. I didn't have a turban on. Of course I didn't, in the water. So he said, Salaam alaikum, you speak Arabic? I said, yes. And he started talking to me, and he went to another resort before this resort. And so I was asking him how the other resort was. You know what his answer was? The other resort, the wine was watered down. This one is better. Exactly. The only Muslim I met the whole time. And then I said to him, Khalas, it's fine. I mean, I don't drink wine and stuff, but I'm having a hard time eating food over here. Because, Sheikh, I'm going to eat the food after, okay? Has to be the biha. So I'm having a hard time of eating food over here because I don't eat vegetables, I don't eat seafood, and I can't eat the meat. So I'm literally I'm doing mujahada over there. Even though there's 14 restaurants that all you can eat buffets, and I'm doing so much mujahada. And so the brother's like, what are you talking about? You can eat, you should be eating anything. And I'm like, brother, I don't want to hear masail from you. Not the last person in the beach from you. That was the only Muslim I met the entire time. When I came back, I went straight to our school, and I had one of our students give adhan. It's like a person who leaves Medina for so many years and finally comes back. What kind of feeling do you have? The feeling that you have that you're back home. You feel good. So the Prophet is saying to this person, عَلَيْكَ بِمَجَالِسِ أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ. The essence is keep coming back to a good environment. Now, if we don't have a good environment, how are we going to do it? This is what we're doing over here. Establishing these walls, the spirituality within these walls, the simplicity within these walls, and hopefully we will develop a good environment. Second thing he says, وَإِذَا خَلَوْتَ فَحَرِّكْ لِسَانَكَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Okay, now when you're alone, try to remember what you heard and keep reminding yourself about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he said, subhanallah, and if you listen to this hadith and then you look at the shara of this hadith, it's so powerful. Not everyone will come to the masjid, and not everyone will leave with the dhikr of Allah. Then he says, Ya Aba Razin, إِنَّ الرَّجُلِ إِذَا خَرَجَ مِنْ بَيْتِهِ زَائِرًا أَخَاهُ. Now you come here and you realize, well, I have so many people in our community who are not here. They would benefit too. They're good people. But someone has to remind them, so you feel a sense of community now. So you're here, you're sitting here right now, then you take away something like, oh, it was a great thing, but I have friends, family, they're amazing people. So a person who has this thought and he leaves his house just to meet a Muslim brother for this reason, not a WhatsApp message, not a call. خرج من بيته زائر أخاه. Listen to the fadila, the virtue of this. شيع له 70,000 ملك. 70,000 angels are prepared for this individual. يصلون له ويقولون, who are making dua for this person and saying, ربنا إنه وصل فيك فصله. Oh Allah, this person is leaving his home just to join ties with another Muslim brother or sister to help them out. So help this person out too. He says, يا أبا رزين إن استطعت أن تعمل جسدك فيه فافعل. Oh Abu Razin, if you could tire yourself, your body, if you could dedicate your body just for this, do it, because this is the best of this world and the hereafter. Allah make us among those, this community who is here, to understand we don't want to be in a place where we have janazas during COVID and everyone shows up. MashaAllah, Alhamdulillah. But why do we are the same, we change our schedule around, we come for janazas. But we could also come for different community events. We could also come for salah. So Allah make us among those who take out our time and understand the value of community. I understood the value of a community when my brother passed away. And we make an effort to love each other. Once you love each other, then you want to meet each other. You want to meet each other. And hopefully this place becomes a meeting point and we shake our wings off. And inshallah, individually, we elevate in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also as a community, we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.